Today we are hanging out with photographer and friend Caroline Tran, Las Vegas. She's also going to be at our Banff workshop. If you're interested, come out to the mountains, take some pictures, hosted by myself, Lindsay. 50% sold out. Get in now.
I'm Caroline Tran, and I'm a Los Angeles-based photographer and content creator and mom. I started photography about 13 years ago. At the time, I was a full-time high school physics teacher. I always wanted to be a creative entrepreneur. I didn't care what it was, I just always knew in my heart. I always thought it was gonna be a side hustle. And I remember as a teacher counting down the days till I could retire. I remember just every year I would redo the math, like what year can I retire? What's the earliest I can retire so I can finally just do my craft and have fun. I started off with several creative businesses. The most interesting one is probably one where I used to sew doll clothes. There were these really like cult following dolls, range anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per doll. But I would sew these outfits for them and I would sell them. They were eBay stores that we would create. Learned about branding and photography, and I was really fascinated with why some doll clothes were only selling for $10 and some were selling for $800. So I figured out that the main difference came in the branding. The ones that was able to really brand, be unique, and have a perceived value that was able to charge a lot more. The other thing I realized was that the stuff with good photos sold better. So then I had to learn how to take better product photos of my dolls, and I would style them all cute, make little sets for them, and I realized like this isn't too different than styling an engagement session or a kid session. When I finally started my business, I would say I was a photographer. As I started going into marketing more, what I realized is that we're not just photographers, we're actually content creators as well. And what I thought was just going to be wedding photography actually ended up turning into like telling stories of families, telling stories for brands and companies. Especially when the pandemic happened and all the weddings were shut down, that's when I realized that, wait a minute, at weddings we shoot details. That's already like product photography. And then I realized that we've always been storytellers. So what's the difference of telling the story of a wedding day versus telling a brand story? Coming in front of the camera more kind of happened by accident. It was a couple things. One, I was trying to get into like the influencer marketing space, but I was thinking that I would be creating it for influencers. And then I realized that influencers don't have a lot of budget and they don't want to pay for stuff. But I was entertaining it, and so I was using myself as a demo. Where it really took off was during the pandemic, because I do educate. I've always been an educator, as you know, I was a high school physics teacher. And so when the world shut down, I just intuitively felt this need to like help the community stay afloat. And a lot of it I think was also for myself, just feeling a little lost, everything is shut down. I was just doing a lot more Instagram lives, Facebook lives to connect with people, to feel connected, to help people, uplift people. And in that process, I just found myself in front of the camera more. So WPPI has always been a really special event for me. It was the first conference I went as a photographer, probably 13 years ago. My business grew really fast. Within a year and a half, I was able to fully book out my calendar. And I attribute that to just talking to the right people, networking, and WPPI. I reached out to my wedding photographer back in the day that I was now a photographer too. I was too embarrassed to tell her, to be honest, when I first got into it, because I think it takes a while to practice to say I'm a photographer. But the minute I told her, she embraced me, introduced me to her network of friends, and they were like, you have to go to WPPI. And so we all went together, and it was such a fun experience. But it was there where I realized just where I needed to take my business. I feel like it gave me what my end goal should look like. My first speaking engagement happened at the Richard Photo Lab booth. I was invited to speak there, and I think from there is where other people started to see me. So then Kodak invited me to speak at their booth, and then Fujifilm invited me to speak at their booth, and it just kind of built from there. And then WPPI, official show noticed me and invited me to speak as well. But last year, totally unexpected, I was named Creator of the Year by Rangefinder magazine. This year for WPPI, they approached me and said, well, as Creator of the Year last year, can you do a talk about your content creation process, about how you make reels and how you do social media marketing, how you're in front of the camera, and all that comes with it. And so I really had to think about like, what is going to help people at this moment now? I don't think in an hour I can teach people their entire marketing plan or their entire social media marketing plan, but I could teach them how to make a reel. So I did a photo walk where I demonstrated and allowed them the chance to make a reel with me. We did a branding shoot for the wedding film school guys. And I showed them how I was able to create just with my cell phone and simultaneously stills and video at the same time. We shot for maybe 20 minutes, and that was with me demoing at the same and talking and lecturing in between as well. And then I did a live edit with them and showed them how, all the tools I use, and we created a super fun clip for them. And then in my full talk, I was able to then elaborate how Reels fits into a larger social media marketing plan, which then fits into a larger marketing plan as well for your business. One of the most common resistances that I hear regarding social media and Reels is people who are not comfortable being in front of the camera. I have, I guess, two thoughts on that. One is it might not fit your business model for you to be in front of the camera anyway. So I think this is where it's a larger conversation. It's going all the way back to what your marketing strategy is, who's your audience is, and what you're trying to achieve. And so, for example, like a studio, or if you're not actually personally branding your studio, then it might not make sense for you to suddenly pop up in front of the camera, right? But it does make sense for anyone who's trying to really personalize their business and want people to see who the face behind the business is and who's going to be photographing you. A lot of my clients, when they book me, they feel like they know me already. Ultimately, like what I want to do is have an impact, right? And so oftentimes it's these stories that really stand out to me, and I don't think I would be able to attract the type of clients that I do if I wasn't vulnerable myself. I'm not perfect, but that's also what makes clients feel comfortable not being perfect as well and sharing these more deeper stories, right? Like, I'm not just trying to capture like the perfect fake day, right? We're capturing real stories here. For anyone who's just starting out, I recommend you just play. Like, don't be so hung up on finding your niche yet, because you might be like hyper focusing, and what if you realize you don't like that once you've hyper focused, right? And I think in my business, I actually have benefited from not hyper focusing, especially when pandemic happened. Had I been only a wedding photographer, my business would have completely collapsed. But because I also did a lot of portraits, I also did commercial work and branding work. If you are first starting out, try a little bit of everything. If you have the opportunity to help anybody else who's more experienced than you, like the education that you can get from watching someone and learning from some like real, hands-on experience is invaluable. So in my WPPI course, I was only able to cover one tiny component of the whole marketing stuff. So if you want to learn more about marketing, I have a free 3-day business boot camp that you can click on the link below to catch on replay at your own convenience. And I also have a course called Like Nobody's Business that is a 10-week program where we go through everything from building a strong foundation to your audience, marketing, money, making sure that it's sustainable, your workflow, and all that. So I look forward to helping you create a thriving business.